Ba-da-bum. Are we live?
Yes, we are live with episode 61 of the Mind Clash podcast. Live here on Twitch with
It is most certainly live.
with the official co-host of the show, Kale Decadence. How you doing?
Ooh, hello, I'm doing well. And I did just receive word from Senor Ashtarothi. He will be on as soon as he can. There was a squid attack, apparently, in the Federation.
How many hooks do you need to catch one of those squid bastards?
You got 6 legs, right? They're septipods? So, I don't know. No, that's not right.
The answer was railguns. Railguns.
What was I thinking? Anyways, but yes, yeah, this is episode number 61. Just 8 shy of having some real fun, but that's all right. Today with us we have some wonderful guests, some returning guests, some new guests to talk alpha things and whatnot. But first, some introduction. We could start from the top with Conduct Uzama blah blah blah.
Alright, I'm Conduct Uzumaki, part of the insurrection. Yeah, I do whatever fills my Eve wallet, but space murder is my favorite.
Nothing sweeter than the space murder.
And then we have Blood Ruin.
Hey guys, I'm Blood Ruin. I fly with thermodynamics and I'm involved in some different tournament stuff. I also have a YouTube and Twitch channel, The Blood Raid.
Beautiful. Gotta check that one out.
And up next, do we need intros for Cyclo? Probably not. Who cares?
Yeah, fuck that guy.
No, Cyclo, who are you?
I'm Cyclo Hexnall. I'm the CEO of the Dickwad Squad in Rogue Capel. I do a little bit of Twitch streaming with Alpha Clone PvP, and I do some Alpha Clone PvP and fit videos on YouTube as well.
Very fit.
You're pushing out like weekly videos right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to do like every Sunday. I try and get one out. It feels like a pretty rough schedule, but it gets easier.
It's worth checking out if you want to learn how to PvP in small ships, alpha-friendly ships. Check them out.
I appreciate that.
Check it out, indeed. And returning guest that we can't remember which show she was on, but she's here nonetheless. The extraordinary and wonderful volunteering at Eat Vegas, Greg Al.
I'm Greg Al. I am the leader and founder of Redemption Road Corporation and Affirmative Alliance. We do public rooms and new player rooms, and I'm heavily involved with eVegas as a volunteer with, helping everybody get drunk.
Yeah, I mean, more than that, you were doing all kinds of work behind the scenes.
I still can't believe we raised as much money as we did with those avatar pins.
Yeah. For sure. And then, of course, you've got the one and only Miss Morgan Star Killer.
Hi, I'm Morgan Star Killer. I am part of Mordu's Angels with DAB, which stands for Dark Angel Battalion. Apparently someone took that name. And I'm also DJ at eJustRadio.com and /gaming.net. And I also have a Twitter and Twitch. My Twitter is Morgan S. Killer. And my Twitch is twitch.tv/Morgan Star Killer.
It makes it so convenient when you name all the things the same way. And of course, I am Cal Decadence, one of the original OG co-hosts, and tonight I'm drinking my latest beer, which is a Sour Smash IPA.
Beautiful. And I'm still Meredith. I'm still with Iron Armada. And I just got back of a nice PvP content deployment to Curse. We're back in Fountain, looking to put down some moon mining stuff, I guess. I don't like shooting rocks, but...
I actually thought about the possibility of going into the solo moon, not really moon mining business, but having one of the Athenors or the Tataros in a wormhole, but then I realized you can't fit carriers in there, so it'd be kind of silly.
You could build them in there.
But you can't store them in there.
You could...
You can have a work wall.
Holder characters.
Could go old school and use a pause.
Okay. Anywho. But yeah, we're talking about some stuff, some EVE Online stuff, specifically alphas, which is why we have some specific guests in mind. Hopefully Asherothi pops in because I know he's got some crazy alpha things that he's got going on. But first, the news. I guess I'll go with the news. So eFanFest tickets are available for the early bird price, whatever that may be. You can find that on Eventbrite or just search on EVE's page. I'm sure they have it somewhere. But that is next year. What time? Same time-ish, March-ish?
April.
April 14th, or April 12th through the 14th. And you can get those early bird tickets at starting at 148 buckaroos.
And if you're concerned about the recent releases at CCP as far as the community staff, CCP Falcon on Talking Stations was reiterating that the show must go on and that FanFest will not be impacted by this decision, and CCP will find ways through contracts or through outside contractors to make it happen at the levels we all expect.
I have my bar set low for that, so I really wouldn't expect much anyway, so I'm sure they'll succeed.
Well, FanFest, if I understood it right when I was there, almost everybody at CCP is involved in the running of FanFest. So it wasn't just a single department that did everything. Or just 2 or 3 people that did everything. So I expect that it's going to be different, but it should not have negatively impacted necessarily the running of it. You know what I mean? Of FanFest.
Yeah, I mean, Falcon pointed out that many of the people who we recognize as outward front-facing people attached to Vegas or FanFest are not within the community team and are not regular community or outward-facing jobs at CCP. These are people who hold other tasks at CCP and just enjoy to be part of the FanFest or Vegas experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mostly true. Of course, you know, it's going to have an impact on eVegas, I have no doubt. But it'll still be a great eVegas next year.
It's the people that make eVegas, and I think it's the players who are like pushing that the hardest. And CCP makes sure that there's an event that we can gather around.
Mm-hmm.
It is about the people. Speaking of the people, do we want to just really quickly go over that list of our friends and dearly departed loved ones who will no longer be with us at CCP? This is just what we have confirmed via direct postings from these people, but we have, in no particular order, Roughage, Logibro, Manifest, Pearl Jive, Elvine, of course, Lilu, Frame, Phantom, Shadowcat, and Hunter, which I was pointed out that not laid off, but just happened to give a notice anyways. So those are just a few of the nearly 100 names that were axed. Yeah. Is there really a pumpkin spice hummus dip? That sounds gross.
It's pumpkin spice everything. Everything is
true.
Available.
I do not like. I don't understand what the big deal is about pumpkin.
Can't we get some pumpkin spice Titan skins?
Ooh.
Yeah, you do know that there's no actual pumpkin in pumpkin spice, right?
Yeah, I work at McDonald's and kind of figured.
Well, actually, the Starbucks actually does have real pumpkin in it. They do.
No, I mean, pumpkin spice has never had any pumpkin. It was just the spices you used when making pumpkin pie traditionally, and taking that same spice mix and adding it to other things. So it became pumpkin spice.
What you're saying. It's like allspice.
It's allspice, cloves, cinnamon. Why can't I think of the rest?
So you're saying my entire life has been a lie up to this point, and I should just quit?
No, you should just enjoy it in the things you enjoy it in.
Okay.
I think if CCP's listening now, you just heard it here. Christmas vanity item, pumpkin spice skin copy.
No, gingerbread.
That would be really, really wicked cool, especially on the Mars ships.
Just full orange.
Yep. Speaking of full-on orange, I don't know if it's really orange, but the Loadstrike skins, they're orangish, right? Are they orange?
They have some red stripes, a little bit of brown on the front.
Yeah, they got some orange in them. So the Loadstrike skins are available, and I guess those are all the whatchamacallit, for all the mining things. Actually, no, not just for mining, they're for industrial things.
Yeah, they're limited time skins available with the Lifeblood launch. All the subcaps look pretty cheap actually. 110 plex, the Orca at 250 and the Rorqual at 390. But
I don't like them.
Fine. Go get
So
a
I should-
volatile skin.
I should start linking some of this stuff. I'll link this one. And we talk about things, and I don't link them, and nobody knows what I'm talking about. Ugh.
It's okay. We love you anyway.
I know. I tried.
There's
Oh,
this-
which by the way, speaking of loving me so much, last week, Mirdud, you had mentioned how I sounded a little sick at the end of the show, and Tuesday night I found myself in the emergency room. Thank you for spreading that love to me.
Wow.
No, what happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, they just think I had a viral thing, flu-ish deal, but I thought it was
Okay, that's not as bad as I thought you were making it out.
No, I thought I was gonna die. I'm telling you that. I thought my spleen was rupturing or something.
That's how I feel every time I have the stomach flu. I know how you
Yeah.
feel.
If you get that feeling, you should probably pay attention to it, to be honest.
Let's just drink beer instead.
You know that feeling when you feel like you're dying, like you're almost self-destructing, and then you get really close to the edge,
Yeah, I do know that feeling.
but then you pull out. You're like, no, I don't want to self-destruct.
But then you can't because there's a bug, a real bug.
I just read about that earlier today. I had to laugh. I didn't even know that people actually would do that, play that kind of like chicken game.
Oh, is that a game?
Yeah, it's totally.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is it really?
I know for a fact people in NC Dot who have lost. I think supers doing that. Like one of the guys that was in the corp I was in for a while.
Yeah. So what we're speaking of is the sentient self-destruct system that is part of your pod and your ship. You can initiate a self-destruct. Apparently, if you wanted to say no, just kidding, I don't want to do that for reals, there's a bug where too bad, you're going to do it anyways.
I believe you can change it with a session, you can affect it with a session timer, like initiating warp or something, and it will shut it off. But if you're playing that chicken game and you wait till like 2 seconds and then you hit it and you don't necessarily realize and then you just explode, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it said within 10 seconds if you tried to cancel the self-destruct with 10 or less seconds, in other words, a session change or less, then you couldn't.
Darn.
But if you initiate a session change, then that cancels it anyway because the session.
I don't understand why there's self-destruct button other than outside of just actually. It's just weird because like I understand there's a self-destruct button, but why would you try to cancel it if you know you're gonna die?
Well, in case you just had like a revelation and you didn't want to die anymore.
It's.
Okay,
I mean,
fair enough.
It's a fairly common practice when you're waiting for like 4 hours in a fleet. You start self-destruct checking.
Playing a little. little
I
game.
mean,
People self-destruct on our rums all the time to, reship and rejoin the fleet quicker.
fair enough.
I feel like one day on April Fool's, CCP just needs to bring that timer down to 2 seconds.
Well, that's what happened. Well, I mean, that's gonna be a little. I think that'd be funny, but also like probably make people. I don't think it's gonna make people quit the game. Make pilots kick out of corps if they decide to do that.
Yeah, we don't want GMs doing reimbursement stuff on pointless stuff
Exactly.
like that.
You don't play around with. If you're gonna self-destruct in Titans because I feel like you know you're going to die and it's the biggest middle finger to like people who want to get a Titan kill, I would assume.
Now,
But I don't really see how that changes anything because they'll still be on the kill mill. Like, it doesn't deny anything.
Is there a final blow when it comes to that, or is it just like the last person who hit it before it blew up?
Yeah, I believe it'll be the last person to apply damage before it exploded.
Not generate kill mails, but CCP changed that so that everybody who was already on it got on the mail, and the last person who shot ended up receiving the mail.
Oh, I wasn't sure. That's why I'd asked.
Pretty sure recently there was like, was it a Nyx? It was some kind of super that had died, and it only took like a few thousand damage or something like that. It died with a group of caps, and he just self-destructed because he knew he was done already.
Wow.
all right, well, pretty slow news week otherwise than that. I mean, so quick after the Lifeblood release. I guess this time was allotted to putting out fires, but aren't too many fires occurring. I heard there was one issue with people spamming mobile depots around a moon mining location in order to outcompete a potential moon mining structure being placed, as the mobile depot counted as a not valid location to anchor a structure near. So that bug or unintended feature was dealt with.
Wait, so how'd that go?
I guess people were anchoring mobile depots all around the beacon for mining moons.
Okay.
And then that was excluding all of the valid locations to place a structure.
Wait, they actually got rid of that?
Why would they get rid of that? That sounds great.
Love that.
God, I love this community.
Can you imagine, can you imagine just like massive Eve fights happening over a mobile depot timer? That would be wonderful.
I dig it. They should have
How
kept it.
clever. So basically, they were taking advantage of the fact that you can't anchor one of these within X kilometers of another anchored structure.
Exactly.
Totally.
Because mobile depots are considered a structure. That's too fun.
Oh, but does that open up the door for potential issues with if you can now have mobile depots right next to these structures? There's potential for things like easier refitting or
a blockade.
I can't remember the fix, but
yeah, you can't refit with a mobile and using a mobile depot within how many seconds of a weapons timer? I think anyway.
I might be misremembering, but it might have just been labeled an exploit.
Yeah.
That can't be an exploit.
I don't know. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yep, also didn't happen.
Similar to spamming cans around a gate as a decloak, causing lag or causing unintended consequences.
I think it's totally fair, and I like it.
It's so clever.
But not everything that we like is something that we should have, such as one's moustache. Sometimes people don't like it, but you have it anyways, just to mess with them.
I love my wife, so I will not grow a mustache.
I love my wife, and she can love me with or without my mustache because I'm going to grow it. And you want to know why?
To tickle... Oh, never mind.
Okay, that went really weird really quick. No, but I'm actually growing my mustache for Movember for the past trace years. I have been growing the mustache during the month of November to help with raising mental health awareness. I do that through the Movember.com website, and I am doing that again this month. But it just so happens that I do it for raise awareness for mental health and suicide awareness in men. And we actually just had an incident the other day on Twitch where somebody was attempting suicide via an Eve-related Twitch stream. So we wanted to really briefly mention that, number one, there's plenty of sources out there for you, including the Broadcast for Reps Discord, which I will link. And There's that Discord. They also have a Reddit page. Even though I hate Reddit, I will link this anyway. So there's that. And then, so if I'm growing my mustache, if anybody wants to donate to help raise that awareness and put your money where your mouth is when it comes to wanting to end this epidemic, I will provide that as well. And I am starting a Team Mind Clash. So if you're a like-minded individual and you want to grow the mustache for your friends and loved ones to enjoy and make mockery at, you can do so.
It would honestly look better if I drew it on with a Sharpie. For me, I can't do it.
And yes, I am wearing this funky, crazy, like 80s-ish shirt because I felt it matched the creepiness of the mustache.
So, what was the end of that that Twitch stream? Did it help reach them?
I want to say it did. I don't know the particulars. There was a Reddit page, just a Reddit thread, kind of discussing it. And I know Twitch did in the stream banned him from Twitch or banned that user from Twitch. Hopefully, the GMs or somebody got a hold of him. I'm assuming if he has a
there was a GM that convoed him in game, so while the stream was still up, I believe. So, and then hopefully, there's things on Twitch's side that they could potentially, help with. But
in the past, Twitch, in situations like this, Twitch has actually pulled information if they have it about the location of the person. I think it happens with like partners and affiliates. If you filled out W-2s, have your address logged and things like that, then Twitch will notify a local authority.
Yep. So yeah, so that hopefully ended well and nothing too drastic happened. But there are resources, broadcast for reps, spam for hills, all that fun stuff. There's plenty out there. You're not alone. Anyways, Merida, does that make you angry? Is that an anger game?
I hate it when people try to kill themselves. It's my job.
Exactly. And you can do that in the anger games.
Speaking of, I believe I'm on the defending champions team. Just want to shout out to Spooky Action at a Distance. Defending champions of Anger Games 2.
What can you tell us about the anger games?
Well, it's a 7v7 tournament. It's a bit different format than things like Even T. And so the nice thing is it's somewhere between like Even T format and Alliance tournament, both in the size of the group and also in the rule set. So whereas the Alliance tournament, you can have up to 2 of any given ship, in Anger Games, you can only have 1 of any given ship, and then various point distributions. And it's a really fun format. I'm really excited. This year, there's a lot more competitive teams in some regards. I think Exodus is putting together a team. And so it should be really exciting as it comes up next week. So
Right on. So yeah, I posted a link to that in the chat. And that is Anger Games on this weekend as well as the following weekend. Okay, and Murda's moving something up that I was going to talk about later, but I guess we could talk about it because it is happening this weekend as well, which would be the Eve Best of Us Veterans Day Rome. Do we have anybody else besides me that can talk about that? No. So if you are a armed services veteran like myself and like one of our other reoccurring members, Ryan Solo and Jay McClain, it doesn't have to be United States. It can be Canada. I know you guys have like a Moose Army or something like that, and or any other part of the world that has an armed forces, and you're a veteran of that. You're more than welcome in the Eve Best of Us community. So if you look up that channel, Eve Best of Us, or no, just Best of Us. It's just Best of Us in Eve Online, and you can join us there this weekend.
But anyone could join with the Rome, right?
I think so. I mean, fuck it, why not? Just say you're a veteran, or you know somebody who's a veteran, or you have stolen valor. I don't know, whatever you're into.
Well, I'm pretty sure in the past their rooms have been MPSI, all are welcome, public rooms. So I'm pretty sure it is. I could be wrong.
Just know that we all swear like sailors, and we could all give a fuck less.
I think in the post that Jay McLean made on Reddit that he was attributing this one to his grandfather, who was a serviceman in World War II, I believe. So I think most people can have some family member who's been in the armed services at some point in history.
Apparently his grandfather was in the Royal Air Force during World War II. So indeed. But just looking over his post. I'm pretty sure it's everyone. Just get into the channel Best of Us and X Up to be added to the fleet, and it's bring your own ship. If you cannot fly a Ferox or an Osprey, so it sounds like they're providing some ships.
E-War frigate was preferred.
Yep. Indeed you do. Where are we, my God? Where are we?
We're peeking out.
Peak. God, look at us with the whole thing where we're transitioning. Yeah, we are peaking out. It appears there might have been one of the highest points in the past few months in the Tranquility server, peaking out at 40,139 players on Tranquility. I don't know what date that was, but
it was Sunday.
That's really it was yesterday. So it is fairly high considering what it has been. It's not the highest.
The previous Sunday also had about 40,900.
Which apparently we can contribute some of that. Apparently there was like a Russian holiday or something, so a lot of people were off work, and a lot of the Ruski friends decided they wanted to blow up into the Guardians of the Galaxy staging system and set some timers. So they're looking for some fights, baby.
It also helps, according to EVE Offline, there's also a fair number of new players starting up recently, about 200 to 300 per day.
Yeah, all those bots. I hear that's a thing now, but I don't know how that's a thing. It doesn't make sense to me.
Bots in the community? Well, there's lots of people who utilize bots in order to bot types of characters. VNIs are popular, Gillas are popular, ratting carriers and supers are also potentially available, but there's a large number of players, as well as the CCB security team, who are working hard to track down those bots and kill them because they are very predictable.
Yeah, apparently. So, yes. Speaking of predictability, no, just kidding. I had no follow-up.
Mio Fard in Twitch chat reminds us that Calmill, all bots.
Every single one of them. But yeah, so tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is alphas and alphas and alphas. I had no real creativity when I was creating the show notes, so that's literally what I put was alphas and alphas and alphas. But yeah, so pretty soon. When is it soon? I don't think it's really soon. December soon?
December.
December is soon. There are going to be some changes to the alpha clone skill set. Kind of, sort of, but not really. But yeah.
So for those who don't know, living under a rock, maybe just come back to the game. There are 2 states to each account subscription status. You are in the alpha state or the omega state. The omega state is the traditional state of EVE Online subscribe status. You have access to all character skills, all training speed. You can do anything you want, access to everything. In the alpha ship state, which was released a while ago, you were available to play any of the frigates, destroyers, cruisers, and the Gnosis of your faction if you chose the right faction when you started the game. You could also start as many free alphas as you want because there was no cost to maintaining the account at that level, with a maximum of 5 million skill points that you could train to at a reduced rate compared to the Omega clone rate. And this was paired with a new player experience upgrade that came out. And this pushed players to start up, try the game, and get their feet wet without having to worry about that first 30 days being all about getting your first Plex. And we had a lot of new players join the game when alphas were released. We had a lot of people come back to the game and check on their communities. We had a lot of people start up for alphas because they wanted to just have another character that they could go do some solo PvP in.
But it wasn't enough, was it, Merdad?
No, so CCP has recorded a lot of feedback from players who canceled their subscription or stopped playing, and there were some deficiencies they found within the alpha set, and they wanted to make some iterational changes to it. The first big problem was that limiting yourself to one race of ships was quite frustrating for players. As I said, most veteran players or returning players who wanted solo pilots for all factions ended up building alphas of each faction so they could get into each faction of ships.
That was a bad choice.
Oh, I couldn't stand that faction locking. It caused us so many problems with our Nubro rooms.
I also think it's pretty annoying. There are factions, especially in the PvP, I don't know about other areas, but there are factions that are a lot weaker than the others, and it's pretty high extent that they are weak, and be a shame if like players wanted to PvP or something and chose the wrong faction and then just had too hard of a time and quit.
Well, I mean, it's the same for PvE as well. I mean, you look at like the Vexor is one of the more capable ratting ships as well, right? And so if you get locked into Caldari, say, and you end up wanting to run missions of some kind, you kind of are limited or held back in being very effective in those regards. And as a new player, making money is pretty important to a lot of them, and being able to sustain what habits they want. And so that can be very frustrating as well.
Look, I mean, clearly Galente was the only right choice to begin with, so if they didn't choose that, that's kind of their fault, you know?
No, I would disagree because I feel like the Mar is the more versatile one. Not in low shots, but in terms of weapons, so they can do missiles, they can do drones, they can do lasers.
Amar, sorry to cut you off, but Amar actually cannot do missiles in the current Alpha Clone state, even though they have ships with launcher slots.
Correct.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, like from my experience out being an Omega, I think they're the most versatile. I understand we're talking about alphas, but they can still use lasers and drones, so...
All hell the Federation.
Yeah, I would not agree with that. Just, I've played a couple of alpha clones up through, like, Desi size in Faction Warfare, and the two that I found to be the most versatile for that specific role were Caldari and Amar to an extent. And really Caldari tended to be better. And so, like, I guess it all depends on what area you go into, because I know people were saying like the Imicus was really good for exploration and things like that. But if we start looking out beyond that for the scope of like a character who this is their only character and this is what they want to keep doing, then...
I meant talking PvE-wise, not PvP.
Well, I'm so glad that they're making this change, because it's like hours of my life I get back. But one of the biggest issues we had really was that how do you explain to people that what faction you are doesn't matter, except for the fact that...
It really does matter.
Yeah, if you want to stay an alpha clone for an extended period of time, especially. Oh, but you should choose this faction if you want to be focused in PvE, and this faction if you want to be focused in PvP, or whatever. It's just terrible. I hated that.
I think it's also, would be different. Like, you know the mining resource wars that just came out, right? Where they have a faction restriction. I'm kind of mixed on that right now.
I actually don't know anything about that.
Okay, so resource wars, you're restricted to, when you're doing resource wars in, like, you know, Caldari space, you're restricted to ventures and the frigates of that race. So if you're using, like, you can only use Merlins or Condors and a venture in order to do the resource wars for Caldari. Kind of mixed on that as of right now.
Well, but aren't the resource wars focused on harvesting resources? Like, aren't they mostly mining related?
That's why I'm mixed about it. I mean, it's a cool idea, but, like, I don't know if they're going to change that in the future or not.
It's gonna lead into something. I mean, it's mostly an experimentation with the AI and
that's what I was thinking.
But I mean, I haven't done it, but I understand it and I dig it and I see where they're going with it, and hopefully it goes on. But anyways, we're kind of digressing a little bit. But what we were saying was that now, yay, everyone who is an alpha can utilize any of the faction ships, as well as now they will have access to some
pirate factions, right?
Well, they could have. Well, yeah, I guess they can use pirate factions now, so they can train any race. But now they can also get battle cruisers and battleships. Well, not now, but in December.
Also, the T2 weapons. T2 weapons, right?
That is correct.
Wow,
weapons.
You guys are professional skip-aheaders.
Sorry. I don't know why you do that.
Do we have notes?
We do,
yes.
Sort of. All right, so the second challenge that CCP expressed players were having was that they were limited to the cruiser and below ships. Now, if anyone has been in a nullsec fleet or tried to do any level 3s or level 4s, especially if you don't have access to all of the higher tier weapons, say Scorch within an Armar laser, you would want to upship into a bigger ship. I mean, Feroxes are quite popular, Hurricanes are quite popular. Battleship fleets are the go-to doctrine if you want to defend your home pocket without having to move it too far. And especially among veteran players returning to the game, not having access to 1, 3 of the factions, and 2, the large ships that they used to fly commonly, forget if they had a capital or super capital trained, didn't have access to any of those ships. And they found that it was a play experience that veterans didn't really want to stick around for because they were used to flying those powerful ships, and they were willing to make some sacrifices, say not having Tech 2 ships, but losing even battle cruisers and battleships was a negative experience. So CCP is moving away from that. Did you hear any feedback from any veteran players returning to the game really wanting to get into some big ships?
I never did, but I heard a lot of complaints from veterans coming back to the game about the lack of T2 guns on small ships, and now that they're small T2 guns, will be able, they'll be able to use them as an alpha. I think that's a good change. It makes being that solo frigate hunter killer, or somebody who likes to fly around in a comet or whatever a lot, actually viable as an alpha. I'm not comfortable with the idea of the T2 medium guns, to be honest, though. I think that's actually making too much of the game available as an alpha for a long, and available and feasible for long periods of time. I think for the long run, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot there.
Well, I think that's their goal, though, right? They said that they want the availability for someone to play their entire game experience as an alpha clone, which I kind of agree. I don't know if that's going to make sense monetarily down the road, but if that's their intended goal, then I think that you can accomplish, I would say, 90% of the activities that I do, and I've been playing for 5 years, are in cruisers, faction cruisers, Tech 1 battle cruisers, and frigates,
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really good change if their goal is to increase people playing for a long period of time. again, yeah, it brings up that question of, does it increase their revenue?
Yeah, it's like,
sure.
why should I spent the overwhelming majority of my Eve life in a frigate or a destroyer, I have no need or reason to actually pay for an account with this change.
Well, I mean, so they did bring up the whole idea. I don't know if we're going to touch on this later, but you can only train 5 million skill points essentially for free. And then after that time period, there's up to 20.5 total that's available in the alpha set skill set. So that other 15 either has to come from subscription, so that's a way for them to get money, or skill injectors, which being that skill injectors at some point had to have an extractor used, right, with what used to be Aurum and now Plex. They would be getting money from those transactions.
Yeah,
so
you're absolutely correct with that.
Yeah, so I think there's some aspect to it, but once you hit that 20.5 million, beyond that, if you're happy with your experience, there's not a lot of reason to upgrade to Omega.
Yeah, there's a lot of what you might call like legal jargon in that, whereas yeah, they are raising the skill set, but you are going to have to be selective in which skills you do select. And if you want to train beyond what a normal alpha skill set would be able to use for some of those skills, you're going to have to be Omega for a little while. And then once you're back into an alpha, you'll have still access to those skills. But at some point, you are going to have to shell out some money either way to CCP.
Or you're going to have to give ISK to someone who did shell out money.
Right, which is using money somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, but this disincentivizes those who already have all the small ship skills trained or small and medium ship skills trained that they want. Once you have them all trained, why pay for an account if you can fly for free?
I 100% agree with you. Hey, it's Ash Tarathi, everyone. Would you like to give a quick intro?
Hi,
I am Ash Tarathi, CEO of Aderon Robotics and commander of FedUp. And sorry I am late. Operation Tripwire required me to go kill 3 more structures. So, but now I'm here.
Oh, you're one of those dirty structure killers now that you got some sovereignty going on?
No. The state, allies of the state was bold enough to put a structure in Fleet yesterday, so it had to die.
Those dirty militia men.
If I can just jump in here, the thing I like about this change is that it softens the commitment curve, right? So right now, being a member of, before this, playing the game past 21 days had a binary commitment. You either were subscribed or you weren't. Alpha says, it softened it a little bit by saying, hey, if all you want to do is these basic things, then you actually don't need to commit. You can just come and go as you please. There's no financial commitment. What this is doing is it's saying that there's now 3 stages, right? There's this is what you get for free. And then there's if you pay into it, you get to keep it. And then there's you now need to be paying in order to use it, right? So that's what I like about it, is that it creates this kind of softer curve. And to the effect of why somebody else would pay for it, it's the simple matter of why people pay in any free-to-play subscription model: convenience and power above a tier. So you're looking at cloaking, being able to log in multiple characters, anything about capitals, anything involving Tech 2, anything involving Tech 3, which is significant enough that I think that we're going to have a lot of Omegas still.
But CCP was expressing a concern that some of the feedback was that alpha players were feeling like they were still trapped in a perpetual trial, and that they weren't advancing to a power level rewarding enough to feel like they were playing the full game.
Then pay for it. Gosh,
correct.
Darn.
So the fundamental problem that I ran into being a group that works with alphas a lot is that to a certain extent we could get away with it. We could have, like, for instance, alphas and vexers next to omegas and vexers, and arguably from the outside they were identical. Only if you peek under the hood were they different, which was kind of cool. But what this change does is it makes it so that 90% of the fleet comps that we would naturally expect people to have theoretically can at least be flown by an alpha because they gained pirate ships, battle cruisers, and battleships. So now they can fly literally on comp, even if they're a little bit less powered. EVE Online has already dealt with people of varying power levels because of SP, right? Not everybody has perfect SP. Not every person sitting in a SERB will fire the same distance as everybody else that's in a SERB, and that's okay. We've compensated for that. Alphas just make it so that you can only get so high in that power scheme.
Correct. So
Well, yeah, don't get me wrong. I agree with all the changes. Just the one I don't agree with, and that's giving the medium T2 guns.
I can see where you're coming from with that, Greg. With the medium T2 guns, it just adds so much that they can keep that that should really be locked behind the little tier 3 thing that Astarothi was talking about, where you have to pay to keep it.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at just about everybody who's still active in my alliance, and none of us would need to continue paying for an account. We all have the skills we need to do what we do on a weekly basis. So, which is small ship stuff. So,
but that's like the bet.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe you end up converting alphas into omegas at a better rate, and you don't keep losing them after 3 weeks like you were before. But you do it at the risk of losing paying subscriptions.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to that point, like where we're going to be at, 6-9 months to a year from now, when those newer alphas or the second wave of alphas saying, well, it's not fair that we can't fly Rourke walls, or it's not fair that we don't get to fly just regular carriers.
Well, CCP is betting on smaller players joining the game and playing. One, you will now have a ship in space that's a target for some Omega player. And two, that they will monetize the microtransactions through other models, through skill injectors, through skins, or through other potential monetary vehicles later on.
Yeah, to kind of say the same thing in a slightly different way. There's two things. One, I believe that CCP has discovered that as long as people are playing the game, they'll pay for it, right? One way or another. If you have a hobby, you have a tendency to invest in that hobby. If they're not charging you a subscription, you're going to find some other way to give them money as long as those avenues are available. Second of all, traditionally, free-to-play is financed not by everybody pitching in, but by whales. And while EVE is relatively resistant to that because the whale lifestyle isn't necessarily the optimal path in EVE, the truth be told is for these people that do decide to play, the more people that are playing the game, the better. So Grey Gal, if half your alliance all goes alpha tomorrow, but they keep playing, that may actually be a net positive for CCP in the long run.
I do like that view. I like that. That's a good way of looking at it.
If you're an alpha, then maybe you're just entertainment for the Omegas, but at least you're able to play.
Well, and you're still going to have certain activities or, I guess, play styles that can only be done on Omega. And one that just pops into mind is people who their source of income is skill farming. And, there are guys running 30 plus accounts or what have you, and they are farming skills in that regard. And that's not possible on an alpha account, just simply because you have to get, once you hit that 5 million skill point, you can't gain more unless you do something, either injectors or plex or whatever. And so those kinds of activities are going to be restricted behind that. I don't want to use the term paywall, but some sort of transaction for them to be able to do that. And there are people that is a lot of their gameplay, or a lot of their how they make ISK in the game and finance their activities. So that won't go away. And that kind of, when Ashrasi said whales, that's the picture I had of someone running insane amounts of clients, and that is somewhere along the line generating revenue.
I will say, sorry.
I was just going to say that I also think that they continue to miss out on a major income opportunity in regards to merchandising. They can afford to really go nuts with the alphas if only they would do some legitimate merchandising. I saw how, like at eVegas with the pins that we made, the avatar pins, for donation. I mean,
it's
people were going nuts over that. The store was like sold out of most everything. Halfway through.
it's pretty bad when a lot of people would rather buy products from like Redbubble, through Rick's Javix than they would the Eve store as well. I mean, it's kind of something they're missing out on for sure.
Yeah.
In defense of the Eve store, I think they've taken feedback from Vegas's in the past as for what people want to see in the store, and they've made steps towards producing and making available merch that people like.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's way better than the old mustard store.
And I mean, the Vegas group is a very, 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 very dedicated crew of people who are going, and that is not 1,000 people is not enough to support whole lines of merchandise, right? And people who are there in Vegas also have a budget they are willing to dispose on everything.
Yeah. Kind of going back to, I actually had a question for Greg out, because you said you're very concerned about the T2 guns being available, T2 medium guns, and I was curious, are you thinking in the sense of like a large null fleet meta, or are you just an individual with T2 medium guns? Is that something that you think is concerning long term?
I think that if your ultimate goal is to get paying subscribers, that you're shooting yourself in the foot there, that it's you will end up with people coming up with min-max plan skill, the minimum number of months that you need to pay for an Omega in order to maximize these skills here, and then others who are already been in the game for years will drop subscriptions because they don't need to anymore.
But here's the kicker about that. I think that's actually going to bring people to the game.
I hope it does, and you made me look at it from a different point of view, a different paradigm,
there's also
thank you on that.
A few other things. When you look at the actual skills that are available, while yes, you might be able to use T2 guns, there's a little bit of an issue as far as efficacy or effectiveness. I don't know which word is right there. And also the support skills in other areas. So while you can actually have your support skills at 4, like sharpshooter and projectile analysis, and these different supporting skills that yes help you project damage, there are skills like the compensation skills in armor. You can only train those to 2, and so your effectiveness, whether it's in a small group or a large group, becomes, there is a benefit to paying Omega over a long period of time. If you're out PvPing every single day, if you have a single energized adaptive nanomembrane on your ship, then you're not getting the most you could out of that. You're actually like 15% behind where you could be. And I think if you get to a certain point where you've been playing long enough and you have those activities that you generate ISK from, it becomes more, like Ashrathi was saying, an investment where you're now kind of investing your time into the game. And so then there's the potential where you'd want to be paying or plexing your account to get those advantages or to get those wider range of activities.
Well, just to, real quick answer, if you already have those compensation skills trained at 4 or 5, you don't need to be an Omega to have access to them.
Not correct.
No,
they're not in the skill queue. They're not in the skill set that's available.
You would only, even if you train to 4, once you go alpha, you will count as only training up to 2.
Yep.
Okay, so I was misunderstanding that.
The one oddity to all of that, which we're not sure if it's going to be permanent or not, is Spaceship Command. So Spaceship Command 4 is required to train Battleship 1. So technically, you need to you need to have Battleship 4 in order to train, Space Command 4 to train Battleship. But then once you have it trained, you will have Battleship, but you won't have the Spaceship Command for it. But you'll still be able to pilot the Battleship.
Yeah,
yes, that's correct.
They clarified that in some of the forum posts, but nothing official has come up. But some of the devs have actually clarified that.
I mean, it's a current mechanic. I have a character that has like 4.3 million skill points and can fly a freighter because it doesn't have any advanced spaceship command skills, even though that's currently a requirement. But 3 years ago or whatever, when I trained that character, you just had to have spaceship command 5, the industrial 5, and then freighter 1. and so I can still fly a freighter. It's still a current mechanic.
Yeah, because even though it shows all the prerequisites, only the top level skills are required. It's just one of those weird oddities. Other than that, yeah, whatever turns gold, you no longer have access to.
That isn't color coded. There you go, Astrothy. Good for you.
I didn't color code it; they color coded it.
No, wait, good on you to recognize that.
But what I want to see is people like Fintaru, right, roaming around in a Garmer, and then be like, "Hey, this is my fit. This is the skill plan, and this is the guide." Just like a complete kit, right? So make a new character, train these skills. Here's your Garmer, and I think that that's really cool. I think that you could have specialty characters. And have that be pretty good. I think that it makes sense that an alpha can live a pretty good life. It just takes a little bit of extra fiddling in order to make it all work because you're an alpha.
Yeah, I mean, I've been making videos a while back that were alpha friendly for the Executioner and to an extent the Merlin. And actually, Finn was the person that taught me how to play this game. He was like my mentor for 2.5 years in Rifterlings. So definitely like that kind of play style is really important. And all you have to do is you just have to make some minor adjustments and compensate for things like maybe speed, because that's actually, I think, an area where this skill set is going to be really limiting. I think it has like the navigation skills only to 3. And I think that's a really big area in any form of PvP. And some of those different things, but it's definitely doable. And Finn would be a perfect person to make like a set of videos or fits and just explain, how you're compensating for the difference in those skills there and how to make up for it.
Also, I mean, if you don't go Omega, then how could you enjoy the fun that is PI? Come on, guys.
Is that really? That's
PI is Omega only.
That's awesome. Oh, God.
I tweeted about that a couple weeks ago. I was like, if this is going to be a premium feature, can we at least get it looked at?
But it is a long-term passive income source, right? So maybe that's why it's not involved in there.
Yeah. No, that's definitely why.
The same with mining barges, right? You can't get too high up into mining barges.
Which is interesting because now you're seeing a lot of grumbling, especially thanks to resource wars, that people are wanting alphas to have mining barges. So we'll see.
They told you once they're give them a little cookie. They want some more. If you give an alpha a cookie,
we'll slippery slope the shit out of this. By next year, we're going to be running around with alpha titans.
Only Tech 1 guns though.
Yeah, it's a civilian Titan. You get it at the end of the new MP.
Be careful. Concord guns are technically a T1. So.
Oh, did they fire Ghost?
No, I doubt. No.
Damn.
As far as I know, Ghost is still with them.
Boo.
Everyone has to drink.
Oh shit! You have the drinking game going on with that, don't you?
What's the drinking game?
I mentioned the G word.
What, Ghost?
No, I have to say it.
Oh, what's wrong with saying, or what is drinkworthy about saying Ghost?
Apparently, some people think it's ridiculous when I spurge on about CCP Ghost.
Kale just has a long lost romance that he hasn't exactly worked out. He's a modern man though. He can figure it out.
Ghost is an international man of mystery though, so I understand.
Yeah, very mysterious.
All right, look, there's nothing wrong with having a touch of a crush on CCP Ghost. He's a good-looking guy.
Oh, sure, he is.
And then to be little fanboy of him because he's so smart. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So
that's one way to put it, right?
But so you have a crush on him. I have that exact opposite, which is, you might call an anti-crush, but I don't want to get into that because that would lead me down a whole spiral of shenanigans. Let's see, how far are we into?
I'm frustrated by him, but I also admire him.
I enjoy his presentation.
I have two main concerns, and I'm not part of a big null block, so I'm curious what other people think about this. my two biggest concerns are Hurricane Doctrines with T2 guns. And I don't really know how much of a difference that is from T1 guns. I haven't been involved in those groups. And the other is I'm actually really concerned about tornadoes with T1 artillery. I think that could be like just annoying as hell with like insta-lockers on stations everywhere or something. But I'm curious what people
bodies,
think.
though.
Like
that's the
Corp
whole
spends a lot. A lot of my Corp members, their main source of income is sitting on a Mara or Jitta with a NATO and volleying. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference. The big problem with that, a lot of the dudes I know, pretty much everyone I know does it solo. With an alpha, you can have that NATO online, but you can't have another like hauler online to scoop the loot once the thing dies, and loot's going to disappear from that undock pretty quick if you're not quick to get it. So that's a problem that they'll run into.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Alpha fixes any problems in this case.
I'm not saying fixing the problem. I'm saying how much more prevalent could it become? Could it become, to an extreme? That's the question I was kind of posing.
I'm sorry, fixing the problem for the people doing it, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's fantastic that people are out there killing people on undocks. But
yeah, I think that's the biggest key, is that if people are out there doing it, then that's actually arguably not a bad thing. And if they're doing it too much, they'll probably overfish themselves, right? Like, or compete against each other. Like, I kind of want to see how it plays out. The ecosystem
or they'll become targets.
I mean, there were a lot of, tinfoil hattery about when alphas came out and what people could do with 1 million accounts that were free, right? And as far as nullsec's concerned, I really haven't seen an iteration of, an alpha sitting in every system providing intel to every network everywhere. I haven't seen even jump bridge systems or key junctions or entry systems to pockets littered with alpha characters that people just log in to check things.
I'm not sure you've been to Russian space, because I can tell you, like in Geminate, if you go through, there's a whole set of, I'd say like 15 characters, and they're named the exact same thing, 1, 2, 3. And I obviously can't tell if they're an alpha character or not just by them being in local, but I can definitely tell you that is, some iteration on an intel bot or just intel of some kind. And so that I don't know. I have mixed feelings on whether that's a problem and how attentive people are being, and that's a whole different concept or conversation. But
the problem should be accentuated in faction warfare space, because we have less systems and kind of we're all plugged in here together. But I'm still not seeing it. In fact, when I suggest it, people often laugh it up. They laugh it off. There might be a couple of people that have done it. The only example is like when we know that a specific system is interesting for a period of time. But even then, I could just use a normal alt, not an alpha alt, for that if I really cared to.
Yeah, true. And then you could do other things on your other accounts while that one's logged in.
Yeah. The God honest truth is I've ended up using my alphas almost like jump clones, where like I can look at, they're all kind of off doing different things. So depending on what activity I want to be doing, that's what controls what alpha I jump into.
Yeah, I think the Intel bot problem is a real problem, but I don't know if those are alphas. I
don't know if it's alpha related.
If you're making enough money in your super or multiple supers or your whole botting Gila network, then you could pay for those amount of accounts.
One thing that was touched on a little bit, but was kind of skirted over earlier, is that while we see a large increase in power, damage-wise, we're actually not seeing an increase in tank strength for these alphas.
Yeah, I actually was looking at, because Macarial doctrines in Null are big, right? That's how you do a lot of different various activities, whether it's structure related or otherwise. And those compensation skills, that is what like made me look at them, because if alphas are not catching reps and other people are, then they're not being as effective in large scale engagement as you'd want them.
So this actually gets really exciting, right? Okay, so imagine this. I have a Macarial fleet, and I'm smashing into another Macarial fleet. We have, or another fleet of some kind. We have logistics. They have logistics. They can't crack our guys, but they can start hunting for our alphas because the alphas are going to be significantly weaker and able to be taken off the field and are doing the same amount of damage now. They're high. So you want to poke and find the alphas because you know that those can't be protected by the Logi as well.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. And it would bring a much more active sense to, switching targets and trying to break through and get people off the field.
It would also allow for a certain amount, like, imagine if you have the intel of that. Imagine if you manage to find that, have that information ready, and the other person doesn't.
Oh, that would change the entire tide of it. Suddenly, it's that other fleet actually has 2/3 the numbers of yours because you killed all of those characters first. You eliminated them off the field, and now it's not even a fair fight.
Hey, real quick, Morgan's got to bounce. You got any quick shout outs there?
Just a quick shout out to Eve Radio and go on eveindustria.com and gaming.net, and that's all I can think about right now. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Later, Morgan.
Have a good one.
I mean, it would be amusing if you heard an alpha player complaining that their Mac just got alpha'd in the latest fleet fight, and they're like, "We'll just Omega up. Stop being alpha."
Yeah, stop being alpha. What the hell?
Yeah, I think that's the best part of this new version of the alpha, especially what Greg Al was saying. This is deceptive. The gut instinct is that there's no reason to not be an alpha. Why would I ever become an omega? But I guarantee you, after a long enough period of time, you're going to be like, man, I've been collecting some ISK now for doing this stuff. I should probably just have an omega. Right. And then it becomes just this natural progression. Of course I would be an omega. It's no longer I'm deciding to become an omega or, or I'm trying to step up into something way beyond. I'm trying to get past the newbie zone. That was the biggest problem, was that the old alpha was too easily able to be pigeonholed into a forever trial. I think that CCP would much prefer people be like, oh yeah, there's no reason to go omega for a while. Just so that way people almost feel like they're clever when they decide to finally.
This is actually pretty brilliant. It's CCP making it a little less painful. So it's less like, hey, you should do this coming from CCP, and more like it's their idea in the first place to upgrade to the Omega.
It's Inception.
You've got Inceptum, man.
Yeah.
That's really clever. I have one question here is, and I haven't been able to find anything about this, but maybe I wasn't able to look hard enough. When an alpha clone does upgrade to Omega with some Plex or something like that to get some of those skill points, do they have a visual representation of what they get to keep if they drop back down to alpha, or do they have to look up spreadsheets and such to see what skills they should train up?
That's a really good question. I don't think we've seen the interface, have we? I
mean, I believe it's in the current skill interface. It would be the same, I would assume. Where
right now there's yellow, gray, and white.
Yeah, and so there would be. Oh, that's interesting, because I mean, I would assume it would be the yellow and the gray. But yeah, I don't know about that middle zone, that 20 million or that extra 15 million skill points, how they're going to denote that, as you can't train these skills, but you will keep them. Would be kind of interesting.
Hopefully CCP UI guys make a good decision.
It'd also be a really good way to show, hey, I mean, you can't use these T2 guns right now, but if you go ahead and upgrade for a little bit and you can train this up, it might be a nice little way to that would probably work on me to peek me into buying them.
Well, you also I was gonna say it would also be really good, because then someone who's looking at doing that and they only want to upgrade for, say, 1 month or some period of time like that, they could plan out which skills they're going to train in that time period, because they would know which ones they could keep.
Yes.
Additionally, it's good to have your users practice the kind of purchases that you want them to invest in early, and so that way they can get used to it, so that way when they make their decisions to purchase, they'll be more inclined to do it, right? So if all you have to do is get a skill injector and you see this immediate return, or get some stuff and know that you're going to keep it for good, I can get a month and I can play as an Omega for a month, And then if I end up not liking it, then I can always just, I get to keep those skill points. It creates, it removes the pressure from that decision. Because right now, if I'm an alpha and I decide to go Omega, I don't know what to train, right? Like I don't know if I'm going to stay in Omega. I feel punished if I revert to Alpha quite a bit because of that. So I think that this helps in that kind of decision-making process and allows the user to experiment with different purchases. Maybe they get a skill injector. One of the things I'm going to do and recommend to people is if you don't need those 250,000 skill points right away, when you make a brand new character, don't use them. Just, if you have a skill plan, go in, start up your skill plan, and then when you get to your 500 million, you've still got 250,000 that you can use beyond that. So now you've at least got 5,250,000 skill points instead of just 5 million. Or, little things like that helps people, like, as you were saying, like kind of feel, now you're deciding how to do it, not just whether or not you should do it.
It does make it also more feasible to, play to pay instead of pay to play, you know what I mean? Where you can actually just play enough and earn enough money to buy Plex. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's still revenue in the pocket of CCP. But it does bring a different mindset of player to the game.
Right. It's earning an investment. It's not a maintenance that you're attempting to grind to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that that's a huge part of this, honestly, because I think that it's not necessarily about buying Omega time. Because if you remember, they've even also said that they're looking into options to allow you to train that isn't necessarily connected to subscriptions, right? So it isn't necessarily Omega in the sense of having all the rewards, but maybe it'll allow you to train Omega skills or something like that in smaller chunks of time or smaller units of Plex. So what I think that they're thinking is that people will hit 5 million skill points, and then instead of investing by buying a Plex, because that's a delayed response, right? That makes me have to wait the whole month to train up that skill, or I could just buy a skill injector right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do we have any final thoughts here on alphas? Maybe reactions, just overall likes, dislikes, and how you think this is all going to play out?
Yeah, I kind of have been looking at this from a different perspective. I come from a solo and small gang, like roaming nano atmosphere. And it's actually interesting because I think one of the hardest like barriers to entry is building the player skill more than the character skill level. And everything that I do in game can be done in these alpha sets. And then like the barrier to entry as far as player skill level gets lowered because that time investment that you're putting in to develop your own personal skill can then like translate farther down the road into how effective you're being and whether or not you want to keep playing. So it's like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential in especially like the solo realm. Like I was looking at the numbers on an Omen Navy issue and the difference between an alpha and an Omega in the new skill set. The difference in range is like 6 kilometer difference, and the DPS output is only like 40 DPS difference. And so like that's really encouraging to me because I think it means that there's going to be a lot of people that can pursue this style of gameplay that I enjoy without ever having to invest money and will want to continue. So I'm hopeful. I think it's really exciting in that sense.
Right. So
I have one last angle to look at this, which is from a development point of view. This is the purchasing of this technology, right? When you pay developers to develop a feature, you're purchasing that feature effectively. So what CCP has purchased here is the ability to have alpha skills that have two different states. They can be trained, or this whole transition to this new version of it, rather, I should say. And so what's interesting with that is that CCP has also set a precedent that they can change the alpha skill set. They even said we could add battleship tech to battleships weapons later on, but they could also remove Tech 2 medium weapons if that ends up being too big of a deal. They could just decide that that's now an Omega only weapon, and the system would compensate for that. So they've actually purchased a bunch of flexibility in their alpha design, and what we're looking at is just one manifestation of that tool.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to see CCP add a bunch of things and then have to retract things. I
understand that, but this makes it a lot simpler because you're not actually taking away the skills. You're just saying you can no longer access it as an alpha. That is a significantly different ask of the player.
Yeah, but they don't have. They've kind of cut the community team now, so they don't have the personnel to deal with the the fallout the next time they take a skill set away.
Man, I don't want to comment on that.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. Sorry, the door was open. I had to walk through it.
So luckily enough, though, for all the potential of the influx of alphas, we have in the form of Ashtarothi and Great Gal, and I believe Conduct, you also have something going on to help indoctrinate, I guess, if you will, or help usher in alphas. If you guys want to talk about that for a few more minutes.
Talking about my monthly New Bro Roam?
Sure.
Yes, it has been recently pointed out to me that I am personally responsible for spreading the Eve addiction to at least 40,000 people.
All your fault.
I tell you. And guys keep telling me that every time I say, I'm done. Let me just retire.
You're not done until we're done with you.
Yeah, nobody will let me retire from this terrible, awful game. But anyway, speaking of terrible, awful games, once a month we do a free new player roam. A New Bro Roam, we call it. And we give you a ship. And thanks to these upcoming changes, I can't wait till they go into effect. We won't have to hand out like 8-9 different ships now for our new player room. So we can go back to just having an actual frigate doctrine. And we'll go back to our old Annie doctrine, which was executioners, crucifiers, and Navitas. Or maybe a rifter. Because they're making a change, they're fixing the Rifter again.
True.
We can actually have a Rifter doctrine again, but anyway, I digress. So once a month, on or around the 15th of the month, we do this new player room called the New Bro Room. We give you frigates for free, and we just get you in a fleet, show you the basics, real crash course in fleet movement, and then take you down in an OLSEC and get your hand shaking and your heart pumping. And we always have a very, very good time. Yeah, even when we don't get very many kills, it's a real giggle, and you don't need to know a darn thing about PvP or being in a fleet. You can be an hour in the game, and the youngest we've ever had somebody in one of our New Bro Rooms had been playing for exactly 1 hour. Yeah, it was
fun fact. My very first roam was one of your roams.
Yeah, there's a lot of you out there. Yeah, it was kind of cool during the AT this year. Just about every single match was somebody I'd flown with before in the arena, and that was really
that'd be pretty cool.
Well, we've been doing the New Bro Roams and Redemption Road, our public roams, which are every Sunday at 2000 at Alberta. This upcoming Sunday is our next New Bro Roam, by the way. 2000 Eve time out of Alberta. But yeah, 4 years we've been doing this. And before that, I was with Agony Unleashed doing their PvP University stuff and their PvP basic class for over 2 years. So yeah, I almost 9 years in the game, or am I 9 years in the game? Wow, long time.
Yep, and I just linked real quick the redemption-road.com, and that's where you can find out a little more information about how to get on those rooms.
But yes, our public rooms are always new player friendly. We just don't hold your hand very much on most of our rooms. The monthly new player room, the New Bro Room, we do a lot more hand holding. We'll actually stop the fleet and wait for somebody who fell behind, that kind of thing.
Sweet.
Yeah, and if you let it be known that you're like a new bro, somebody in the fleet will probably flood you with money when you do something adorable.
Oh, that's cute.
Oh, it happens every time. Billionaires are made on our roams. Just for being an adorable new bro.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's always amusing. I always try to go on when I'm bored, just watching some Twitch, and I'll try to find like a new player and just sit there and assist them through the tutorial. That's my my altruism.
Okay, so Astaroth, did you get that little program you were thinking about getting up and running?
The HiSec Corp, yes, we now have a HiSec department, but really, the whole FedUp operation is about maximizing kind of from cradle to, I guess, carriers, whatever, helping people out kind of transition themselves. One of the reasons why we chose faction warfare is because, or why we chose to stay in faction warfare was because, in my belief, it's probably the best place for alphas. I mean, an alpha player in alpha ships or any sort of new bro can get large, good income stream doing plexing. We try to provide all of the services that anyone could possibly need to do the stuff that that we do in order to be successful and for the advance of freedom throughout the war zone, and foster a constantly reinforcing the idea that we have new players. It doesn't matter how high up our doctrines go. Our FCs have to have a solution for alpha pilots, for new bros and all that stuff. If we link up with somebody, we learn right away that our alphas require like alpha FCs to work with them and not just leave them to the winds, and to constantly advocate for the value that these guys can do. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is a lot of them convert and then work their way up real quick. So actually our numbers of alphas at any given time is relatively low, but our retention is pretty high. So I guess that's good.
Absolutely. So for anyone who's not familiar with you guys are the Federation Uprising, the Galente faction for faction warfare. I just linked your Facebook page because it's the only thing I can really find. I don't know if you guys have a website or not.
Yeah, well, there's AidronRobotics.net, which is my corporation. So basically what FedUp is, we're faction warfare, so we work for the Galente, and we were created during a time that the Caldari were kind of doing pretty well, and the Federation was pretty broken. We'd had a unified front in previous years, but after the Galente Civil War and a bunch of other stuff, there was no unified idea about what we were going to do, and the North was burning. And so we had always defended the South, and that had been our identity. And then other groups like X-Meta decided to kind of fall back and create a fortified position. And now we have this narrative and this organization, and we've secured the South. We drew a big red line and said, this is our territory. And so we're focused on doing that. And what I found is that when you have this kind of narrative and you have this purpose, people really bite into that. People want to be handed a ship, pointed at something and be like, see that thing needs to be ruined. Just go wreck it.
That's the bad man.
Yeah, our guys are green. Their guys are blue. Go make sure that there's less blue people than green. Let's do this. And people really dig it.
Lose every day.
Yeah, we all want not only a reason to log on, we want something to fight for while we're logged on. A reason to fight.
That being said, I want to point out also that the state also is a really good organization. Like, if you want to come and fight us, that's cool too. Come and fight us. The state could use some help.
I don't know. I think you're holding too much SOV too close to me. I'm gonna have to come convert some fed-up ships into Rex.
So, okay, today was my first time ever getting caught in null, like ratting. I was in my VNI. I've died to like NPCs a few times, but this was the first time that I was kind of distracted by other things going on because of all of the anchorings and figuring in chaos in our comms and intel channels all day. Malediction landed on grid with me, 17 off, points me. I'm like, all right, this is totally over. brings in two Cinnables. They're coming after me. I managed to force one of the Cinnables off the grid, and at 3% structure, the malediction gets greedy and drops point. So that BNI is still alive. Nice. Shout out to that guy. Shout out to the malediction pilot that decided that my pod was more important than the BNI.
Wow. Now, Conduct, what do you got going on?
Yeah, on the topic of like new bros, the insurrection is super open, along with my corp, Try Not to Die. I mean, I've been playing like almost a month now, 25 days. I'm very new, and I'm already helping take Sov with like 60-man fleets. I mean, it's great.
That's awesome.
That's adorable.
Thank you.
I think you're actually one of our official like first new bros. We've been hunting down trying to get a new bro to get a new bro perspective.
I mean, shoot some questions if you want.
Well, we're almost done now, but we definitely can get you back another time.
I got one question if we have time for it.
Yeah, hit it.
So what has been, as a brand new you said you were FCing, right?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind. Withdraw my question.
Fleets.
I thought you were saying that you're FCing. I was like, as a new bro that's also FCing, what is your... No, okay.
I kindly withdraw, sir. Yeah, so I do want to... I guess we're going to start wrapping up, Meredith, you think?
Yes, sir.
But before we do, I do want to say, Ash, I finally got around to listening to your cross-faction podcast, the first episode. Really good stuff. I dig what you guys are doing. I think it's cool. Can you kind of explain what your new podcast is about?
Yeah, so about a year ago, CCP said that faction warfare wasn't that important and that they weren't going to work on it for a year. And that hurt my feelings. So basically what I think is that the problem is that nobody is talking about faction warfare or advocating for it. Not that nobody's playing it. So what happened last time there was the faction warfare rebalance was there was a lot of partisan arguing about things. And there's a lot of attempt to use the rebalance to kind of shape the rules in a way that would be favoring to their side, which wasn't particularly helpful and probably left the game in not as good of a state as it could have been. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve on this one. And so we put together Cross-Faction Podcast, which is supposed to be this kind of this meeting grounds where we can get people from all of the different factions to show their perspectives about what's going on and talk about EVE, the news of EVE, and all that kind of stuff from the perspective of those of us that are in faction warfare. We have 2 episodes so far, and then we just hosted a roundtable with Jinton, which was posted on Crossing Zebras today.
Yeah, so like I said, man, I listened to the first one, really good. I likewise listened to the first episode of Evolulogical, the new one by Manic Velocity with his beautiful hair. I don't think he shows his hair, but beautiful man indeed. But he also talked about faction warfare, and it's a really interesting, I guess, I don't know if it's really in-depth. Yeah, it is kind of an in-depth look about what faction warfare is. So if you're interested in faction warfare, I definitely suggest checking out Astrorothy's podcast, the Cross-Faction one, and Evolulogical first episode there about faction warfare with my man, Jay McLean.
Yeah, that one was really good. I was actually supposed to be on it, but I also dropped out of that one out of the last second. That's kind of a theme of mine tonight, I guess. But my XO, or our Alliance XO Silver, was on, and he did a really good job, I think.
Yeah.
Probably better than I could.
Yeah.
Great.
Anybody else got some final thoughts before we start wrapping her up?
Alpha clones rule.
True story.
Galente Master Race.
All right, so we talked about the Festivus Rome, talked about the Redemption Rome, and then I wanted to mention that Captain Blastaho has a few new tracks out. If you haven't listened to him, he does some pretty cool Eve-related like hip-hop songs. They're not covers, they're not anything like you've ever heard before. They're actually really good stuff, so check him out. And then meetups. We're going to cover meetups.
Yeah, if you're not meeting spaceship nerds in real life, you should check out eve-meet.net. This month on the Eve Meet docket, after an Eve Amsterdam that looked like a rager, there's a meetup in Ottawa/Hull on November 6th. Eve NT London is November 18th. And there's a Eve meet in North Carolina, a monthly meetup on the 18th, as well as the Vancouver Eve meetup, which will be the third Tuesday of every month. Come hang out with us in Vancouver and get drunk.
Hammock Talk says he wishes there was a Midwest meetup, and Sapface, there is, my friend. That's the one put on every year with the guys from the Clueless Space Nerds and name slipping, Random McNally, right? No, not Random. Help me out here.
Are you talking about Eve Breckenridge?
No, well, he said Midwest, so I'm assuming he means Midwest United States.
Indiana,
Yeah,
apparently.
Yeah, because it's the one they do in Michigan, right? Or Minnesota or something.
Indiana is the one between Florida and New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in there. That's pretty broad, the United States is pretty big. No, but yeah, they do Midwest meetup. I will have to find the info and pass it.
I believe Dominarch is the character from Blue Space Nerds.
Who's the one from Podside who... Not Random. Far from Pukin.
It's Chicago, right?
I think they do somewhere around there.
Honestly, if you want to start your own Eve meetup, just post it on Eve Meet. I'm sure there are a couple other Eve nerds in your area that'll more than be willing to gather for a couple beers.
Speaking of meetups, we really I want to see us all start like really pushing on CCP to choose Orlando for the Worldwide Fan Fest 2019, and to time it so that way we can have it when the new Star Wars Disney theme park opens up.
That would be amusing.
Wouldn't that be cool?
It's really far from me, but fine.
Could you? It's Orlando. I mean, could you imagine 1,000 internet spaceship nerds in Walt Disney World?
Sweaty and... But anyways.
Oh, it'd be a riot.
So yeah, so we got all those meetups. There definitely is meetups everywhere, and you can check them out at eve-meet.net and create your own, just like I have. All right, shout-outs. Where are we shouting out to, my friends?
Let's start with Conduct.
Shout out to Try Not to Die, my corp, the Insurrection, my alliance, and always remember, never go full on.
Beautiful.
Good point.
Ashrafi?
My shout out is, I guess, to my military wing, Contraband and Silver. You guys do some amazing work. Tonight is no exception.
Right on. Good.
I'm gonna shout out to my two mentors in Eve, Fintaru, who we talked about earlier, and Zach, who no longer plays the game. But both those guys kind of taught me how to play the game, and are big inspirations to why I play the game the way I do.
Their YouTubes live on. Cyclo.
I've got a couple shout outs here. First off, make sure you guys follow up with the Mind Clash Live Twitter account. Make sure that you hit the follow button on the Twitch stream if you don't know. This is broadcasted live. And make sure you join up with Discord and hit a subscribe on the YouTube channel. I'll put all the links for that in the Discord. And of course, follow or subscribe to Blood Ruins YouTube channel as well, the Blood Raid. It's got some good videos in there.
Speaking of good videos, not to interject, but I saw your Alpha Thrasher video and watched it while I was at work today. Good stuff as well.
Thank you. I appreciate
it. Great gal.
I want to shout out to all those CC peers who lost their jobs to the downsizing, and Eve wouldn't be the game it is today without your efforts in the past. You won't be forgotten. And shout out to whoever made the decision to drop the faction lock on alphas. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Seriously, it's like 5-7 hours a month that I will get back to my life easily.
You'll sleep again.
That's like an extra night of sleep, isn't it?
At least. Let's see. I'll do some shout outs. Definitely shout out to the nearly 300 followers we have on Twitch, apparently. Meredith just pointed out 294 followers. And we also have over 100 followers or subscribers on our YouTube channel, which was how I was able to now change it to youtube.com/c/the Mind Clash podcast or whatever. So that's good. We have that going for us. I guess I also want to shout out to my chickens, because I guess that's a thing we can do, to shout out to our chickens. And also, I apologize to the Eve community for not playing so much Eve lately and being bad at it, because I've been playing way too much Elder Scrolls Online.
Beautiful.
Way too much.
I just want to give you my piece of lesson I learned from my deployment. When on contract in a Horde fleet, don't shoot PL guys, because the Horde fleet won't support you.
Yeah.
Word to the
Well,
wise.
that's a stupid rule.
Lessons learned. Shout out to my CEO team. They actually managed to pull together a soda only 20 minutes late. Thanks for pushing that so close to the air time. Beautiful. Love you, Tridget. Please follow the show. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please check us out via our RSS or any of the other good Eve RSS feeds through Crossing Zebras, through evepodcast.com, where you can catch all of the podcasts that Asherothi is starting up on a weekly basis. Thank you.
True facts.
Thank you to the Eve Onion for your support. Thank you for everyone who's donating through Patreon. If you'd like to support the show financially, we would appreciate it. It's not at all necessary, but we enjoy it nonetheless. Patreon.com/ what? I can't remember anymore.
Asherothi. No, what?
I think it's Mind Clash. Or Mind Clash Live. Let me check.
It's definitely on the website. Everything's on the website. If you are not in our Discord, that is the place to be. You can join us there, and we yak about Eve. We throw shade at our enemies. We try to find new friends. And most of all, we find new guests for every week's show. And we will definitely take your ideas as far as topics that we want to be discussing on each week's show, as long as we're not broadsided by crazy judgment days or huge employment cuts. So thank you for watching live. Thank you for listening in post. Any last words from our humble guests here?
Homemade beer is the best beer.
I don't know about that one.
It's a science fact.
Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks so much, Gregor.
Yeah, thanks for letting me show up late.
Fashionably late.
Of course.
All right, we'll see y'all next week.
You're always worth waiting for, Ash.
Oh.
Aw.